everybody, it's Cinnamon Cooney, your Art Sherpa, and we are back for another day of live streaming for our 12-day holiday event. And I'm so excited to be able to bring this painting to you. This is one I've been kind of like wanting to do something with for a while or visit this idea. Especially have been loving the yellow dresses and black umbrella stories that are out there. And, you know, I've been doing umbrellas like forever. So this is something that I really, really wanted to do. We're going to be doing this in acrylic today. I'm going to show you every step of the process so you can paint this at home. On the mic today is my husband, John.
Hi, guys.
He's going to be tracking me with cameras, trying to make sure we have close-ups of the techniques and the stuff that I'm doing, and also read your comments just in case you have a question as we're painting. And if you're here on the replay, hi, I'm so glad you can make it. I'm glad that YouTube lets us leave these things up for a while. You may hear some squealing because still no door, but door will be soon. I'm so excited.
We're a home-based business.
Yes, we are. So today is a really good project. I like this type of story. I like stories like this that bring you into the painting. They take you from one space and send you to an imaginary other space in the view. And I particularly like where a figure or a subject is going into the light. This is just a recurring story for me. And I like this because I think the things we look at impact how we live.
Well, there's a huge community that agrees with you today. And I know that we have some new painters painting along with us today.
Hi, new painters.
I heard Tina was painting along with us today. So hi, Tina.
Check the description. If you're brand new, you got to hit the little more button. It's going to pull out a bunch of information. The materials that we use in the show, a link to the free traceables. And this particular one has 2 traceables depending on the way you like to do the project.
Ooh, Staline is excited because she's on her new computer today.
Ooh.
Oh, so congratulations on that. So
fancy.
lots of people are here with us. They're excited today, Cinnamon.
So this is definitely full 2 hoop, but I'm going to be showing you everything. Some of this is going to be a lot easier than you think. Let's look at the materials.
Okay.
All right. Now I have an 11 by 14 canvas board here. I like canvas board because really, frankly, right now I have a space issue and it's really easy to store. It's also an economic option. And they're just as good as stretch canvas. They just have a firm surface. I have a wish for our Easeling to, she's got travel coming up and she wants to be pain-free, so we're wishing for that. And then I have another wish, and this is really near and dear to my heart, which is that I wish that this season that people who are struggling with addiction are surrounded by compassion, by support, and by healers. If that's a struggle that you're going through, because I know a lot of people come to painting from that, I just want to say it's a tough thing, and we're here with you, and you can do this.
Yeah.
Okay, so that always makes me teary-eyed.
Well, there are so many people here joining us today, Cinnamon. They're very excited to be here. We've got a lot of new painters, a lot of new kitty painters with us.
Hi.
I see some folks from Hawaii tuning in early in the morning to say, hello,
Aloha, Hawaii.
We are with you in spirit, Hawaii.
I think is it Bonne Nuit for France right now? I don't know how much later it is. I've only got a couple things I can say.
I don't know. I'm not from Portugal. I don't speak French.
Okay. So the colors we're going to be starting out with, we're using heavy body paints. And to begin my piece, I've got to make this keyhole light. And to do that, I'm going to be using titanium white, Prussian blue.
Just get you?
And Mars black. Yeah, you always crack me up. For the whole color list, definitely check the description below. But let's start with this. I've got a palette knife here. And what I'm going to first do is take about half of my blue and half of my black and mix them together.
Hey, look. They're tuning in from Constantinople.
Not Istanbul?
Well, it depends. I guess that's up to the Turks.
Sorry. There's just no way for that not to happen. I'm so sorry, Constantinople.
Really, this is nobody business but theirs.
That's right. So when you have that nicely mixed, you should have, this is almost a Payne's Gray. You could use just Payne's Gray, but I like the strong blue context of this. I'm going to wipe this off on my towel to clean it. So now I have my blue, a strong black, and this middle range, plus my white. And what I need to first do is get a kind of keyhole effect going on the canvas. I like to work with a wide flat brush. Those of you that know the sponge method, this is another great place to use that. But I like to use a big wide brush. I'm going to treat myself to one of my number 30 TheArtSherpa brushes. Now, what you're looking for in your brush is some width. It can be a little wider than this. It can be a little narrower, but something that gives you at least an inch wide stroke. So at least a number 10 bright. I'm going to dip my brush in the water, and I'm going to drag off the extra.
And I just want to say to Zeynep who is from Istanbul, that we absolutely no disrespect to Istanbul at all. We love you at all. That was just
It's a song.
Those are song lyrics from a song from They Might Be Giants. So
Yes.
that's why we were sort of joining in with you guys. So
Yeah.
much love out there. Just want to make sure that everybody knows that.
Love all around the world
Yes.
to everybody.
Yes, big love.
While we're sending our love all around the world to everybody, fill your brush. Make sure, see how my hand is barely damp? So if a lot of water would be coming off your brush onto your hand, that might be too much. And if no water were coming off your brush onto your hand, that would be too little. You want moisture here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pull out, I'm going to first load my white. And you can see me going 1, 2, 3 stroke. And what do? I flip it. And I do this. I pull the paint out into this because what I'm actually doing is loading paint. Oh, you can see it here. Into the bristles, see?
Oh, it tilt it forward just a little bit. Wait, there you go. Ah, there you
go. Right? So you see that in there?
It's
This is loading my paint inside very nicely. And I'm going to pull out a little of my mix. If my mix is too gray, I may get a little blue into it. See, I'm getting a little blue. There we go. And this is the light color in the center. So what's nice is to come down the middle of your canvas, pull as vertically as you can, flip, and you will probably be coming back here lightening this a good bit, but it's good to start it out.
There we go.
Right, you got to know where it is. So let's take this down as far as we can. Take this up. And your trick is to be as vertical as you can be. You want your lines to be vertical as if gravity is pulling them to the earth. All right, so right now I'm just trying to get this nice effect. Now, there's a moment when I have to stop painting here, because if I don't, I will take away all my streaking, which is where my rain texture comes from. I'm pull a little white on. I'm going to pull a little of my dark color on. I'm going to get some more blue into it. All right, more blue. So there's my white. You can kind of see the load here. Now I'm going to start to darken around, see I'm coming down this keyhole.
Oh, let's see. I think I have. Oh,
And
there
I'll
it
just
is.
pull this down. Making sure it's just a nice keyhole. Now we have a lot happening here because we have this building that's in our little perspective, and we have our trees over here. Pull a little of my dark, pull a little of my blue, and some white. But we do want this to be a dark color. You don't want it to be too dark, so you can see the contrast between everything.
Ian asks an interesting question.
Okay.
He says, can you use the sponge technique from the other day for this?
Yes! And I was so tempted to do it, but I have a whole bunch of stuff coming up. Sponges. Guys, go get household sponges. Nice big block kind you can cut with scissors. And some sea sponges and some Q-tips. Get ready.
There's some sponge foo coming to you.
There's some sponge foo coming to you. And it's going to be so lovely. All right, so I'm loading again, even still. And then I'm going to get my white. And I loosely load that on there because I'm going to want the streaks. And I'm just painting, covering my canvas. Sponge people are already done. If your brush starts to get dry, dip it in the water, drag off the excess, and reload a little bit. There we go. So, we're always looking to see what our brush load is like, what our moisture level is like. I'm just still trying to pull this. Sometimes when I'm at the bottom, I'll flip it over because I have a harder time getting the streak the way I want it. You can see the load there. So I just come here and make sure that I'm vertical. I have an easier time at the top of my stroke to be straight than I do at the bottom. And these are things you can do to pay attention to yourself to help you win in your painting journey.
Mm-hmm.
Pulling out some more of my dark color, more of my blue. Well, that was a nice blue one. Right here. Don't want to lose all that, so I'm going to have to come back and reload. There we go. Creating a good foundation in your painting. Loading back up. Loading with some blue, getting a little white. Will really help you as you go to paint it in. This is, in a sense, the underpainting that we normally do as an acrylic ground. But by putting this layer in this way, whether by sponge or by brush, if by sea or by brush, what you're going to find is that you can come and really work out your details in a way that's going to make you very happy. See, I'm getting dry. A dip, drag off the extra, reload. Smidges. Yep. Definitely want these to be all the way through. Make sure this is all covered. All right, good foundation. At this point, your acrylic, at least mine is already starting to dry. So I can go in and define this keyhole a little more, which is really good. So I'm going to get into just my blue, but just a little dusting on my bristles. And I'm going to get a lot more white. See, I'm getting a lot more white. And I'm going to come right here and just make sure that this is nice and it's kind of blended. See, I'm taking it out a little bit.
Yeah.
Lots happening here, but this foundation matters. I'm going to come here and get a little water. You can even pull a little bit down. And we'll still have more to talk about in the center because we're going to create some focal light and some really cool events. We just want to show that there's some lighting happening here that we've got. And when we feel pretty good about this, right, like one of the nice things you can do is you can take your brush if it's dry. Notice me dragging?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that can create a very nice effect. And I can still come back through and, you know, darken at my rain up here or darken any part. But this gives me that first thought. So when I'm painting my street already has some streaks in it, right? I can do this quite dark and I can do this quite light and it will still work as a final result for looking like a rainy, wet day. Now, always take your big brushes and be sure and wash them out, or at least get most of the paint out of them until you can really take them to the brush spa. And we're going to talk about our strategy to get through the rest of the painting. So for me, the next thing that I would want to do, that I would want you to do, is sort of to block in the objects. Now, if you have a traceable and you're doing the building, the trees, the whole layout, this is a good time to use it. I am going to show you, though, how to block in this sort of very simple kind of cityscape because there's not a lot of perspective in it. There's only a little tiny bit, and it's very abstract. So you should be able to do it, and nobody should be able to say anything because we're not being architects here. We're being artists. And I love architects who are also artists. No shade to architects. I'm just saying, my buildings may not hold up in wind. I'm going to need to dry.
Okay.
So that I can put my chalk lines on and show you what I'm going to do.
Okay. Well, wow, guys. Thank you for coming and joining us today. This seems really awesome. There's so many of you who come and join us here for painting. I'm always so floored by having all of you here to paint with us. And I have to say thank you for coming and joining us. It's really wonderful to be able to have you guys here as a community with us. So and I look forward to seeing all of your guys painting. So please post those up. Don't forget, in the description below, there's a link to all the materials you're going to need, the traceable, the reference. There's a reference photo, a link to our website, which has all of this stuff, and to all of the other projects that are going on. You can find up on our website. So, definitely check all that stuff out. I can't think of and she's back.
Okay.
All right.
So I'm going to take my inexpensive T-square, like you do. Taking my measurements here also, like you do. Give me just a second, guys. Making sure. All right. So we're about 5.5. So about 5.5 inches from our bottom. Right. I come here and I'm about to say just about 5.5. I measured well. I'm going to make a soft horizontal line. Now, in this particular case, because we're not foreshortening, we're not doing any perspective, we're coming into an open street down an alley. And this was kind of something I did for you guys in the design, just to make sure that things were not that stressful. I'm going to just put a line across.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very useful line. Now, here coming down, and I think this is, I'm going to check my width, is like dead on about just under a hair under 3.5.
Mm-hmm.
A hair under 3.5. So I don't know what the quarter thingy is. But it's looks like it's 9 centimeters. Those living where there's centimeters. Now I just took this building kind of right off the page. Right? And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do this very loose brush stroke. But we're going to do it at kind of an angle. So I'm going to sort of bisect the space and give myself a soft angle that I'm going to be following. It's not going to be long, right? Because we're just barely seeing some of this building here. And I'm going to take a little line down. But a lot of this is going to get soft and impressionistic and barely defined. I like to also, the storefront is based on the abstract idea of like, a city storefront. So you can put in like a little window here, and it can have, some signage above it. I know I've got some stuff happening. And then I put in all these little blocks of color, and then together, plus the bokeh, it's going to start to reflect this feeling of being a little building. Or big building, however you think about it. And then over here, I'm going to have some woods and some trees, but I don't really need to sketch that in yet. And I'm not going to put her in yet. I'm going to work a lot of my stuff out before I stick her in my painting. That's not smooth. That's not smooth, guys.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still actually going to be painting initially with my original mix. And I'm going to grab myself a nice scruffly brush, I think. Scruffly brush. So see, this is a bristle synthetic filament mix. It's really lovely and it doesn't over soak up water. I'm going to grab some of this and I'm going to come here and I'm going to talk about some very light little plants. So I'm going to grab my Prussian blue. Right? A little bit of it. And I'm going to start coming here. And right like almost a hand over, I'm going to start implying a little bush. See, I'm on the corner of my brush, and I'm just sort of tapping over. I'm not going to go very far. Just think about a little bush that could be right here. You ever thought about a bush? You can just tap your little brush to make a... I need to fix that little boo-boo in my paint. There we go. You can even come and add a little white to the outside edge of your little bush. Come in and make another little run of little bush-like strokes. Come back a little bit. I like to scumble here. scumbling up. So we've got some little bushes happening. It's always best to make sure that there's light as possible right here because they're going to be right in the light. And that's sort of fun. And then you can come get a little more of your blue, maybe some of your black. And then I'm going to just come up here. And how I do this sort of tree stroke is sort of interesting. I just sort of, it's like a little scoop. And I just make sure that I come out and talk about things as if they're not completely even. So what you don't want to do is just make a lot of orderly, regimented brush strokes. A little more black there, but that's okay because I'm coming into this space. You can just scumble some of this back here. See how we just scumble that in? And that very act of these sort of like rough little spots actually implies the woods back there. I love everything in art where you're like, oh, that just happened. I'm just back here with these little leaf shapes, right? And just scumble it back. So it's good to have a brush in your arsenal that you can scumble with. I like to have several because there's several different types of scumbling and dry brushing, and they do a lot of cool effects. I'm going to maybe add a little bit of just taking the mix of the pure Prussian and the pure black together, not thin, and I'm going to put a little of a dark bush here. Can you see these little strokes?
Yeah.
How they are? So what a lot of people want to do is they want to go like that. That won't really work for them because that looks like a little row of corn. And you've got to think about the negative space. So if my object is here, all the space around it is its negative space. You want to make sure that your lines, maybe this is dry enough for me to chalk. There's an implied line here. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
So see how that's not a very neat and tidy line? I'm going to just work this out. I'm going to paint this chalk out. But I just wanted you guys to see it. There you go. I want to take out my interest while I'm painting out my chalk. It's just now part of my painting. Multimedia!
Multimedia.
All right, I'm going to take this down. I'm going to get a little more blue. I'm going to come over here from this little outside edge. And I'm going to scumble a little bit, and then I'm going to make sure that I do my little brush stroke because I'm making another little dark mass of plants, aren't I? Plants just do their own little thing. These guys are fuzzy, they're blurred, they're through the rain. They're not supposed to be in focus. None of this is supposed to be in focus. Right? So, that's something to keep in mind. Adding another little layer bush here. You can even come right across here. Just sort of drag out the slight shadow. Can you see how I'm doing?
Yeah.
Right there. So let's add a little more dark, interesting something up top. Like you'd have, and down this back side, but not the whole front, because you want to see some of these woods, right?
Yeah.
I want to see some of these woods. I'm bringing my dark color right here. I'm just making sure that everything I have in here is sort of fascinating and interesting.
Now you're just using a number 10 bristle.
I'm using just a number 8. You could use a number 10, but
okay.
a Cambridge.
Okay.
I'm going to grab a little blue and a smidge of my white. See that right there?
Yeah.
Just make sure that these are well thought about here. Can you see them?
Oh, yeah.
This is painting right here. Just coming in and telling your story. I'm just wiggling my little brush back and forth on its corner.
Yep.
And then I can get a lot more white on my brush. And even come here and imply some branches that are going to be coming into the keyhole later. See them being implied?
Yeah.
They're kind of lovely. You can bring them in a little bit. And then that's going to give some depth to your dark, dark woods. So when your woods are sort of blocked in and dark and looking good, rinse out your brush. I'm going to put it to the side and grab your favorite round. I'm going to grab my favorite round. You grab your favorite round. Sip your cup of coffee. And we're going to plant our tree in here. So I'm going to get my blue and a little of my black. And you're going to need to do your tree, and this is interesting. You have an option. You can do it darker or lighter than your background. But you don't want it the same value as your background. So when you come up here to paint it, and I'm going to pull it out of a bush, and I may put a bush in front of it after I'm done. So I'll put my little bush in front of it after I'm done. I just want a nice little tree. There's my trunk I've thought about. So this is my blue and black and white, and I'm just picking a color either much lighter or much darker than my background. I like to just bring my little tree up, and it gets thinner and thinner, and then I'm going to take it right off the canvas. Let's say I'm going to grow a little branch right here. Make sure that this part of the tree looks thick enough to support a branch. Because, you know, that's a thing you got to worry about. Now, my branches going over this way can be darker, and my branches coming over this way can be lighter, because, like, what's more in the light branches coming this direction.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just something to think about while you're painting. And it's nice, this, like, muted space. Have fun with your tree, you know. Do it any way you want to. Got a couple little things happening there. I'm going to imply some more stuff happening over here. And then when I'm ending my stroke, I just take it out on the edge, and that gives me a little bit more of a branch. When I'm coming to the dark side of my tree, not only am I going to come up my back of my tree with, like, its shadow color, like the beginning of my implied shadow, but any branches I bring over will be just slightly darker. You guys see that?
Yeah.
Because these are more in the deep, dark woods. So to have them be believable, they should be darker than what's around them. See that? That's just a little thing you need to be thinking about when you're thinking about your thing. Now, when I have that in and I have my shading in how I like, all right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little of my blue and some of my white. And make sure that I'm whiter than that. There we go. Put in some little leaves that I'm implying here. See these little leaves? And I may even come and highlight some of the tree. You know what we're doing?
Yeah.
You can even come on the inside of that branch. And on the front of this little guy right here. We're just giving it some dimensionality. Even though it's in the rain and even though it's grayed out, it still has some shape. And there we go. So we have that going. And you can also come in with the light color and give yourself some little twiggly bits.
Mm-hmm.
Little twiggly bits are always fun. If you need to add water to your brush to improve flow, don't forget to do that. So that's just a fine line, and I think little twiggly bits are always sort of fun because you can be kind of crazy with them. Right? And then you can get right into some light colors. And there we go. So when we have those, when we have all that, I'm going to come in with some just blue and a little of my dark color. And I'm going to make this final darkest little bush happening here. You see the darkness? Yeah, I'm using my bush knowledge to make sure I'm making interesting negative spaces, leaving space open so that my mind can finish the picture and do that. Now I have that and I want a great reflection. I mean, that's really what essentially I want. So the first thing that I can do, and you really got to do this wherever you have control over it. Sometimes I do better if my painting is on the side, is you're going to pull down this dark color straight down. I may have to put out some glazy medium. This is going to help me improve the flow of my paint and reflection. If you don't have it, just make sure your brush isn't too dry.
Now,
see, all this would be a little bit darker right here because, I'll move this over. Always trying to make sure I'm working to the strength of my stroke. It's going to be the darkest to this outside edge. Yes?
now, how are you knowing where to put those shadows in?
Oh, because think of this like, for those of you that watch Stranger Things, the reflection world is like the upside down. It's like the world that we see, but it's darker and it's a mirror of everything.
Yeah.
Those of you who watch Stranger Things will, that's a great analogy. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so proud. So I know that my deep values, all my reflections, these things, they'll impact the city street because there's enough light to create a mirror. Wet streets are like mirrors.
Yeah.
So I know I have to pull some dark streaks down in my painting to kind of talk about these little woods that we're walking into. And it's interesting enough, it is the vertical and horizontal reflection play that helps us bring some of the space in. And it's also darkest, darkest, darkest right under here. Right under here. That's your darkest reflection. See, I'm taking that black and just putting a dark, dark reflection in. But just right there. There we go. And then not to the end because it's got a lot of light, but right here you're seeing it. So I'm liking that. Back into my blue. Just making sure, back and forth. See, I'm going back and forth. It's very light there. Because everything here has to be the mirror of up there. Now, when you're happy with your reflections, going up and down, and I always think it's nice to make sure that it just took my glaze to sort of soften them. It helps them feel really wet. Now I'm going to talk about the things that I'm seeing in the world down here. And I'm going to rinse out my brush, right? Because we've got this tree. Now the tree is sort of fuzzy. It's sort of there we go. We want to make sure that's going to show up down here. Sometimes it helps me personally to flip my canvas over so that I can make sure that I'm sort of talking about what I've got to talk about. And what I do is I just make sure I'm painting the mirror. I'm just doing it with this brush because this part of the painting isn't really, detailed, is it? Showing the reflection on the trunk. And I'm not going to see every part of the tree because, the city lights, disruption of water, pollution, those kinds of things. Just making sure I'm just talking a little bit about some of this stuff. Little soft little reflection of that there. And the other thing that you can do, I'm going to get a little blue and a little white. is you can make sure that you're even talking about this bush. Look. See, I'm talking about the bush a little bit. I just wiped off too much white. Make sure it's a nice dark blue. And you can come in. You can do a little of your highlight bushes. And coming back, right? And I'm just light here. Now look at that. When we flip it over, it's going to be a pretty decent reflection. And no, you don't have to be like completely like, you know, reflections are distorted. There's angle of light. You just want to show that what's here exists down there as well. I'm going to sip my coffee. How you guys doing?
Good.
You painted a reflection now.
They painted a reflection. They loved the sci-fi references.
Huh?
They loved the sci-fi references.
It helps.
It does.
It helps. I was like watching the whole thing. I'm like, oh, it's like painting a reflection with terrible, terrible creatures that eat your face and snow everywhere. That place needs my splatter brush.
Yeah.
Same with self-promotion. Yup. No more of that.
Yeah.
More. The antlers have told me I need more coffee, and if I don't get it, they will get me.
You know who we have to keep the coffee away from? Twix. She is a coffee thief. Little.
I have to watch every cup now.
Yeah. Little. If we leave a cup on the on like an end table or something, then what happens is you get this little dog that comes back with this plastered face that smells like vanilla or hazelnut. Okay. She smells very good, but is very, very exciting.
Not good for her.
Yeah.
It's not an antioxidant. I'm not into.
No, she's very excitable.
I'm going to load up my bristle brush with a little of my blue and black mix and some blue. I'm going to definitely use my glazy medium here. And I'm going to start talking about my building a little bit. But it's interesting. I want to do this thing where I like pull it down and I'm going to listen to my line, but I want it to be a little bit soft. Can you guys see what I'm doing here?
Yeah.
So it's not a clearly defined hard line. I'm going to just pull this down. Glaze is a big deal here. Now, when I'm at this outside edge, I can be a little bit lighter, and then I will pull it stronger down the front edge. So what I would say is I am doing a very impressionistic building here. A lot of people avoid buildings because it's so hard to get the perspective, and I certainly get that. But if you can master this sort of trick, you can put a lot of architecture in your artwork and not be too worried about it. Now, where she's going to come, I may have to darken her. And John can tell you, I redesigned this painting so many times that now you guys just have a bunch of umbrella art you're going to have to do. Yes. I explored every combination of possible everything that could ever be happening ever. I'm just not putting too much there. I don't want a lot there. What's funny, babe?
Just I love watching you paint and how everyone interacts with you. It's very fun for me to get to see this and sort of when people are late and chat and they show up with virtual donuts.
I love virtual donuts because they're the kind that don't get my doctor mad at me.
That's right.
Virtual donuts are good heart choices.
Twix should have virtual coffee and virtual donuts.
Yeah.
But does not.
Does not. She's sneaky.
She's sneaky and finds the real coffee and donuts, which I should not be having.
You should not be having. I should not be having. All right. So I'm taking this Prussian blue and I'm just darkening my building a little bit. Can you guys see how I'm doing that?
Yeah.
I'm just sort of creating this space, this forefront that's happening. But, we're going to be lighting it up, so it's going to start pulling forward as we do that. I just want to make sure that I have a nice structure that I'm enjoying a lot. All right. Pretty good. Now, this gets fun. I'm going to rinse my brush out. Let this have a little dry, because I found this whole side of things to be very playful, very enjoyable. This is actually all based off a bunch of requests I keep getting for different paintings. You guys like, can we paint this? Can we paint that? Can we paint this? And I'm like, sort of the country and western mashup of all that. This is quinacridone magenta. I'm also going to put out some cad red light.
Ooh, the big ones.
Huh?
You're rolling out the big paints. The big colors.
All right.
The queen.
Sweetie, you grabbed me cad yellow light.
Yeah, look at that. See, that's yellow. That's a super yellow.
It is, but it's light when you need medium.
Oh, sorry.
John helped me this morning lay stuff out, so I'm not being mean at all, and it's impossible to know what paints I have, and I don't expect anyone to actually know that. Perfect. I'm putting out some. So here's the difference.
Oh, yeah.
This is a lot more to the orange. This is a lot more to the green.
But those are the super bright paints.
They're very brightly pigmented paints, for sure. I really, really hope so. So I'm reserving the zinc white for when I'm painting my girl because I needed subtle highlights here. All of this should be pretty fun, though we might do some in our bokeh. But this is all you need to pull out, just put out to start, doing your building. Grab a square brush. I think a smaller size is always good, and I like to dry brush, so I'm going to again get a bristle. But any size brush like this is fine. Maybe I'll do it with this, because you see me do this other one. So I'm going to do it with this number 6. What I'm looking for is a brush that is going to give me a nice square edge so I can easily block in my objects in the building, and also so that I can be like very expressive and loose with it. So I'm going to grab a little of this color right here to darken this at first. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to sit there and say, all right, here in the lower half of the building, I'm going to paint a somewhat rectangular shape in blue. I know, living wild. You just take this anywhere you want to. You can take it to the corner. So think of a shop window, how it reflects light, what it feels like in the city at night, in the town at night. What you're trying to like talk about is that feeling, not the actual thing. And so I'm going to grab a little white into my blue. There you do. I'm going to come across here and just very lightly over the top of my paint. This is a dry brush, so I haven't put water in my paint. I'm just coming across the side. I'm going to come down too far. And then maybe I'll put one vertical streak right here. Isn't that fun? I don't know. It's fun for me. I'm going to get some of my quinacridone and some of my white. I'm going to come right here. Pull some of that down. Can't tell you how happy that makes me. Just in every conceivable way. Just so happy. Because I love that color. Now up here I have some interesting kind of colored spaces, and then I've got some red and things, but it can be kind of fun to block in the things that are of a similar color and then start filling in, or you can like build it up like Legos if you're like feeling unconfident to jump around the space and place things in the right space. So it's really about paint conservation versus, and I want this one to be quite light. Because this up here, I imagine, when I looked at a bunch of different like buildings in this really famous French street, and this is like how I'm going to talk about this little sign. There's a lot of signs. I'm going to make just a square. A square. You could chalk this in. You could use a T-square. You can do this any way you want to. Maybe I'll take this to the edge here as well. It's up to you. And I've got this interesting sort of little square. And it's fun to come back with a little bit of white. Make some strokes across in white. And one across the top and a bit down. That strong stroke comes down. It's just helping me inform myself about what the shape is like. So it's got some cool stuff happening up here. I'm going to get a little of my blue and some of my quinacridone. I'm going to come across the top here. And this is so like muted. I'm going to pull that down pretty far. See, we're coming across horizontally and then pulling it down pretty far. I'm going to get a little white, but not too much. Just enough to start picking up on some of the different little colors I'm playing with right here. Just, and then you can, I'm going to bring one down here. It's a weird little, it's these little playful bits that start to tell the story of like, maybe a little light, but that's okay. An old building. Now, see, I leaned into it. That happens to me. So while I'm here, I'm going to get a little of my quinacridone and some of my white glue. And what's kind of fun is I'm going to, see this line right here?
Yeah.
Anything that you want to imply is like in the building, in perspective, just mimic that line's angle. And then you can pull down. And pull down. See how we have almost an implied window? So cool. Almost an implied window that we just put there. All right, I'm going to go wiggle and pull down because this building is involved, right?
Yeah.
A little more of my quinacridone here. When we come through with the yellows, it does so much for everything. Just rinse out. And there's one little space. I'm going to get a little blue again. Blue, do. So if you're really new to painting, even though this is a very low pressure activity, particular building, if you have not painted very expressively before, this can be really challenging. I put another little square there. And I'm just using my brush, and you can already see the building starting to come into its own and take on a life of its own. I'm going to put some paneling in a little later, but for right now, I'm going to get my white, and I'm going to come around right here. And then maybe a little, not necessarily to the bottom, because I've got to darken that bottom up a lot. That's fun, though. There we go. And I'm going to get a little of maybe my mixture here, and knock some of that back. It feels so bright, being rainy, and you just will be constantly looking for that. Does it feel too bright in the rain? Does it feel too manufactured? You know, are you liking what you're seeing? Okay, so what's fun is to take a little of my quinacridone, and believe it or not, the cad red. I'm gonna come here. Look at that pop. Across. Maybe a little upward stroke. Something down this way. I'm coming back with yellow, so, you know. Now, I love this up here. This was, again, another, like, little expression of a sign. Little, very expressive mark. See how it was, like, all very loose? Loosey-goosey. Come across here. Get a little stroke up. Maybe another little stroke up. Look at that. Look at that just starting to become a thing there. It's like, it's just starting to glow. Like, it's very glowy. You know, but we need a couple little marks over here in this color as well. just light and just drag them down. I'm just barely touching over here.
Yeah.
Not really even a thing yet, right? And I'm going to rinse out. And the yellow is really fun for me. So first I come through with like a little of my pad and some yellow. I come right here. Talk about things a little bit. Very loosely. And I could definitely get right in here.
No.
Just pull some down here and across. Look at that.
Yeah.
Fun.
So Chrissy had a question here.
Hi, Chrissy.
She says,
Pulling
I
more yellow.
always learned to paint dark in the back and lighter in the front. The painting with red, and this painting you started with light in the back.
Well, because lighting is the reason you would paint it differently is the sun moves.
Yeah.
It really, at the end of the day, artists just talk about how the sun impacts all the objects on planet Earth. And sometimes you will find yourself, have you ever been walking somewhere and been in a dark tunnel of trees, but the end of it was illuminated, or at the end of the tunnel? Mm-hmm. It's really always about light sources. So we have some light sources here, and we have an unknown light source here. Mm-hmm. And even though it's nighttime and it's actually quite dark, these two light sources are impacting a lot of our figure. And then, of course, there's whatever's happening over here off our canvas. And so it's just thinking about those things and how they can happen. So it's a good thing to go darker to lighter, but it's just one way, and it doesn't really cover
universal.
Everything.
It's not universal, especially in a cityscape where there's weird lighting sources that can happen, backlit things, frontlit things.
It's a thing.
And also, I mean, you also paint
I'm
something.
Load up a little more yellow and red mix and come over here and make sure I've got some.
Now, I've also noticed that sometimes you paint a light coat down before you'll do another color to help with the coverage of the student paints. Mm-hmm. So that's sometimes another reason why you paint something white back in the background or light colored in the background, huh?
Yeah. Definitely.
So you're just sort of putting some emotional lighting.
I am. I'm talking about these signs and how they're impacting everything else. It's sort of interesting. You know, it's good to come through with some pure pops of color. So I got some pure CAD here, you know, and you come through here and just drop a little bit down. And you can put some right here, you know, where it's up front on you. And I think some just bright yellow and a little white's good, because we have that kind of light, don't we, where it's like that just like intense yellow with a little bit of white. So I'm just pulling some of that out. So I have some of that. I'll put some here. All over that. Across here. This definitely needs some, because it would be like totally being impacted by everything around it. A little more white. Putting that there. I mean, it's fun, right? Where could it go? Now, I've got to give this some boundaries, and then I'm going to darken this down here like rain and stuff is hitting it. So come around this and just give it a little kind of loose frame.
That really creates that contrasty pop.
It does. And it doesn't need to be perfect. You're just creating the sense of a structure that you can make out. You know, so you just get it in where you're happy.
Your brain kind of does the rest.
Your brain just does the rest. And one thing I think it's nice is to put a little of that Quinn and phthalo reflection in there. Whoops. Drug a brush all through my paint.
Now, is there a hard, fast rule on when to use gesso instead of black?
No, there isn't a hard and fast rule per se.
Was there a guideline on when you could or should use gesso instead of black?
Yeah, so gesso, what it is gesso is a controlled ground. It's not a sealer. It doesn't protect your paint from anything underneath. It just is a surface preparation. So say you had a surface that just wasn't how you liked it to paint on. You can use gesso because it's inexpensive, and you can sand it, you can finish it, you can do several coats, you can thin it. It gives you a nice tooth for the paint to stick to. The truth is, though, is that with acrylic paint, you can just paint over acrylic paint with acrylic paint. Like, you don't have to gesso over canvas to paint the next painting.
Yeah.
The only reason you would gesso is to give yourself kind of a clear visual space mentally. Or if you needed to start with a white, bright ground or a black ground. Gesso can be cost effective. Like, sometimes it's much cheaper to use a black gesso than a black paint.
Yeah.
But sometimes not, and you have to make those decisions as you're painting. And do you need the tooth? Right? That's the grit that your brush drags over and leaves paint behind on.
Yeah.
All right. So now, if we have that in and we like what we have, right? And I think I want to, that's a little white right there, so I'm going to take that, maybe darken this right here. Oh, I like that. Makes me happy. That was just my Quinn. I'm just pulling that in. I like that. Now, I'm going to wipe this brush and put it aside. I'm going to get my scruffly brush, because what I really want to do is grab a little of my blue and black color with my blue and some white. And I need a very, very dark aspect down here. And I'm going to take this. I'm going to darken this. Before I put in my bokeh, I'm going to start that process. Right. I'm not going to go up. I don't want to lose all the detail in my window. Just blue. Let me even take this out a little bit this way. Need just a smidge. I'm talking about, when I do this, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the mist and atmosphere and all the stuff that happens during a rain. So things are often not just, crisp and clear. They have like this sort of misty, dark little area underneath them. And while I'm here, I'm going to get a little of my black and a little bit of my blue. And I will turn my canvas to the side to make sure that I have those horizontal streaks that are dark coming out from the building. So again, why do I turn my canvas? Because this is my strongest level of stroke. And it's always important to turn the canvas, not yourself. Don't make the canvas more important than your well-being. I'm going to just pull some of this down. If you need glaze, grab your glaze. Just making sure that this building has got a dark reflection happening, right?
Yep.
Taking it down. And I'm just making sure that it's level. I'm using the glaze to get nice offloading from my brush to make sure I have some very soft reflections against my hard reflections. But this will work however you get it on. I'm just darkening here at the curb. Just make sure that they're straight up and down, because if they're not, it won't feel right. That's the biggest thing that will mess up. You can paint these, you're going to love when I do sponge. You can paint these so loosely and abstractly as long as the directionality of the reflections works. So you get that, you've got everything. All right. I've got to dry that so I can both do bokeh and the reflections under the building.
All right.
So let me dry it, and John's going to say hi to you guys.
I would.
We're going to finish this up, and then you guys get to decide if you want to put the girl in or not. It's a pretty nice landscape as it is.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Hey. So I'm looking forward to seeing everybody's painting of this today. So it's got, This has been a really interesting one because this reminds me a lot of a lot of the cities that I visited, from Seoul to San Francisco or New York. You know, a lot of these big cities, Vancouver, you have these wonderful city centers that are nestled right up to these big parks. And so there's you tend to get this beautiful picture, you know, these beautiful nighttime scenes of the lights playing against the trees, especially when there's a little bit of snow on the ground. I remember cruising through Seoul, and there was some beautiful snow on the ground there, and so this reminds me a little bit of that.
Does it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly I like Paris for street scenes. I like Dublin for street scenes, and I like Seoul, and I also like I think it's Hong Kong. Yeah. Because the lights are amazing.
They are.
Yeah, and you get to see so much stuff. It's just a completely different type of vibe.
Colors are amazing.
If you have an awesome lit street and I happen to not mention you because this is a global community, I'm really sorry. I probably just didn't know. That's all that happened.
We are a global community, but only somewhat minorly traveled.
And there you go. I'm going to pull out a little white and tip a little yellow into it. It doesn't matter even that a little blue got in it. I'm going to come over here, and as light as I can, I'm going to start reflecting my upside down. Right, a little bit there. And come here with a little bit of that happening here. Pull some down, but not too much. It's interesting, right? So I'm going to get a little more yellow now. Come right here and see, because we know we have this here, right? So what do we have here? We have some of this happening here, and then a little bit of a thing there at the end, and I'll have to put that in. Reflection here. This is everything you're dealing with is just about catching little reflections where they go. The building is reflecting, right? And you've got to come down here and talk about that a bit. So I'm going to just barely imply that this is a window. Can you kind of see that I am?
Oh, yeah.
Just barely. And I might even blur it. But I'm just putting enough line in here to talk about a window. And then I'm going to grab a little quinacridone. Maybe a little white. And some of that, maybe some of this right here. A lot of this down, maybe a few here, because, you know, the building reflecting on the side. At the time, and I thought this was really good, I did over here, I even did like a little faint kind of 4 squares that could be that window. Okay, just implied objects that could or might not be, who knows, happening in this space. Because it's all reflecting. When I come back with my water reflections, oh, it really comes together. So strong in the red, but not totally red. I'm going to come here. Just add a couple right there. Turn this right side up so I'm feeling like I'm seeing everything okay. You know, because that's when I can come and like be like, all right, I'm going to get some of my dark and I'm going to pull a couple of structural things, right? And that also will help, you know, show what I've got going on here. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I can pull this dark, look, right over. Some people don't think to do. Just starts to wet it up. A little of the pink, maybe a little white. Here. Here. A little of the red. All right, we're doing pretty good. Just a little bit here and there, and you should be feeling like your building is somehow talked about and being seen down here in some way. You can take all kinds of things as far as you want, right? And now we get to bokeh, which is super fun. Bokeh is super, super fun. It is good to, if you can put one more level of dark right here before you bokeh. Because the street does that. I'm just making sure that I like what I have in my reflections. And they feel like what I put on my painting. So obviously, we talk about things, we imply things, we say things are here, but we don't like really distinctly paint them in, do we?
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Just a little implication of a slightly out of focus paneled window that could be there. Now the bokeh is really fun. I'm using my two smaller bokehs. So these are pounce sponges. They're round sponges. These are, my particular ones will be out pretty soon. But you can get any round sponge will work for this. Let me show you how you load it. And then we'll put some on. Oh wait, actually I think I used the smallest. And then a little teeny tiny dotting tool. I'll show you that trick. So I'm looking now, I'm like, my big bokeh's too big. We'll see. So anyways, when you're loading, start by coming to the edge of your paint and twirling. Can you see how I'm twirling? Twirling. Now it's good to either with titanium white or zinc white. Either is fine. You know, give yourself some tonality. See how I put some white right there? What that's going to let me do is I can come here and I'm going to press in and spin. Press in and spin back. Maybe one here kind of coming off. Now that's giving me some things. Maybe I'm going to load into my orange right now. And my yellow. So I go orange, yellow. I can pop some of these on. Those are always fun. Get into some of my quinacridone. So these are all the colors, really, aren't they, that we have in our painting? Oh, I like that one. That's a really great one. All right. So I have some of that in there. Now I'm going to want to flip my sponge over because I don't have two of them. And since I don't have two of them, that ain't going to work. All right. Now I'm going to come do my blue. And again, I'm doing the spin. That's how I get it loaded. You can see that's how you get it all loaded on the sponge. I'm going to come get a little white. There we go. And I'm going to add in some blue bokeh. Like you could have, right? So then this gets very abstracted. Like an almost white one in there. There we go. So I have that. Now, when you're done with your sponge, be sure and put everything that you're using in water so it doesn't dry out on you. So I now have a fix for that. And you can imagine how I'm sticking a brush in to make sure that it's soaked and dunked and, you know, exactly how it should be. Now I'm going to look. I had earlier a pencil with an eraser attached to the back. I think this will work. So the rest of these, I'm going to dip the back of my pencil, which has an eraser. And I'm going to make some dots. They can have some color on them. So if you can load with color, that totally works. And swirl it too. It just gives me some smaller size bokeh. And I like to have a couple sizes of it. And then when I have those in and I like them, I can always take a little detail brush and just come in and finish them out. And that'll also give me some different shapes as well. There we go. Can you guys see that? So we get some different shapes.
Oh, yeah.
We get some different reflections. We're doing really good. All right. So right now, we're going to start adding a little more key light through here. And then you get to decide while we're doing that if you want to put in your Girl in the Rain and where you want to put in your Girl in the Rain. And then while we're doing that, I'm going to pull some of my white. And I happen to have, and this is actually pretty lucky, a little of my phthalo blue on it, which is going to be very different than my background. And I'm going to come here and just start brushing up and down. I'm going to take it up a little bit taller in my central strokes. I'm going to a little bit wider. See how I'm doing? It's all dry brushed. A little bit. And then I'm going to pull this down through here. It can have a little blue. It can have a little Prussian. It's all fine what it has. It just needs to be a lot lighter. I'm pulling this straight down. Some glazy medium, whatever it takes. Now I'm going to make sure that I pull this kind of at a point. And this isn't even the last I have to say about this central lighting. You can see I'm just adding to this little keyhole focus. Same here, widening out where we're applying the light sources. Now, I'm going to finish off really talking about my wet street down here, so it feels very, very wet. And part of the whole uniform thing, I might even put some more rain up here. And I'm going to grab a little of my blue and a smidge of my black and blue. And I'm going to come from the bottom with this darker color, much more blue. Can you guys see this? And I'm going to pull this into my street. Isn't that lovely?
Oh, yeah.
How we looking?
Really good.
Just lovely. It's just a lovely rainy day, isn't it?
It is. It really is.
I love city lights at night. I love a rainy day. So it's all got a little bit of my black and blue, and my blue again, smidge of my white. I do want this to be darker down here, but it still needs to be streaked. And just a little bit here. Everything is all good. Bring it up a little bit on the inside. All right. So now we really have something going on here. And we can see this light is coming in. We can see everything's happening. We can pull a little blue from the top too. A little blue and a little black and a little glaze. And you can darken even at the top. Talk a little bit about the weather. You don't want to lose your building. So sometimes I like to come on the edge of my brush. Excellent. So now I have my world. If you're not going to paint the girl in, you're going to have to put your reflections in now. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and then we'll move any we need to for our girl. I like to take one of my stiff brushes. You grab your stiffest brush that has the best possible edge. No, not my cap.
Don't worry,
Not my cap.
I'll get it in a little bit.
Stakuni, and so I'm going to pick a nice brush. I'm going to pick my Goldilocks. This is my number 10, right? All of these, and you just get your best edge. I'm going to get my brush wet, drag off the extra water. I'm going to be switching to some clean water because when I paint her in, she's very bright, and I need some clean water to do that. And I'm going to just load a little bit on the edge of my brush, right? And I'm going to come here, and I'm going to tap a little bit. I'm going to come back and forth. Look at these small taps. You see these? They're not big, are they? Uh-oh. All right, just small little taps. Now, the big thing that you're going to want is you're going to want to make sure that these don't get to an angle. They can wander, but they can't be at an angle.
Not
and still
all
look like they're reflections. So you can pull them out. You just want to make sure you don't go like that.
No, not all that wander are lost.
It's true.
It's true. But in water, if you wander on an angle, it looks like a waterfall.
It does. The minute you change the direction,
as soon as they're not level, it becomes moving water.
I'm barely touching my canvas. This is the trick of this. This is the whole thing about painting city streets or doing the Wallace or any of that. G. Harvey. Anybody remember G. Harvey?
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is really what it's about, is understanding this space. If I have to, I will flip this little sucker over. Because as I get to the bottom, look, you can see that kind of went to the angle because I don't have good positioning to control my arm. And if I don't have good positioning to control my arm, I'm in trouble.
Then you should move.
Going in front of this, big deal. You need to. Feeling pretty good. Checking the positioning of everything. I check and check and check and check. The one thing I can do is sometimes I like kind of drag it down and make it seem like they're more connected. All right. And anyone you ever get that you don't like, it's pretty easy to paint it out. So don't be too stressed about it. Just put some light on your street. You're going to be back here again in a minute with some gold halo, but now at least you know how you would get that effect. How wet does that street look right now? I'm going to sip my coffee.
Super nice.
And bask in the glow.
Yeah, that looks super nice. I love how it's just so energetic, and it has that wonderful nightlife feeling. And it's like, what's down there on the other side of the light? I don't know. It could be a party, could be that's where we're going home. You never know. It's just like, but it's sort of optimistic out there.
It is. Her dress and her moving into the light makes this a very optimistic, hopeful piece.
Yeah.
So the next part is we have to decide, where is our girl walking?
on a
Is she
street.
centered? Is she to the side? Where is she coming from? How is she reflected? Now I have 2 traceables. So either you trace the whole thing in early,
No.
right?
Someone was asking, what is the purpose of a traceable?
Okay, so here's why I do traceables. I think drawing is a really cool art skill. It's like I think painting and pastels and glass blowing and quilting and just all these things are very cool art skills, but none of us really start just coming into the world with a miraculous quilting talent. None of us are like, oh yeah, I can totally match up those squares and do all that math. I mean, it's just not how we are. I mean, there's a couple savant people that do that, but most of us, we have to learn a skill. And in art, because of how art education is generally, not everywhere, but generally, very young people get the impression that they're not creative or they're not artistic or they're not able to do things because they're maybe not drawing. Now, they could have great color sense. They could have a very natural, organic sense of space and design and all kinds of things. But because they're not immediately drawing, you're told that they're not artistic. So that's the biggest barrier I have found to getting people to take up a creative practice. So I started doing traceables so people could just remove drawing as the barrier to constructing art. I mean, you can learn it at any time. I freehand all my traceables, and then I just provide those to you guys for free, and you can use them to transfer complicated images onto the canvas. So that means that something that couldn't even be offered in, this type of setting now can be. It's super cool. And sometimes I freehand stuff in to show you guys what that looks like. And sometimes I put a traceable in to show you guys what that looks like. She's such a complicated figure, and there's so much figure drawing involved in her that she's a traceable for this one. She's work for me even to get her
great.
in. Did you take my coffee?
There's a new cup being made.
Is there a new cup being made?
Yeah.
I feel kind of special.
I'm making sure that Twix doesn't come and steal it.
All right, I'm going to dry this because I wouldn't want to smear my reflections, and we're going to talk about placement.
Okay. Oh, let's see here. There we go. So, wow. You guys are really excited about painting this too, so thank you for hanging out. We really do. I look so forward to seeing all your guys' paintings, so thank you for coming and being here. Thank you for sharing your time with us. I do look forward to seeing your paintings. Don't forget to check out the links in the description below, because that'll bring you to our website where you have access to all the different projects. The traceable that she was just talking about is there. There's the reference photos, along with some helpful tips and sometimes other links to other videos that may be useful for you when you're doing this project. So there's a lot of great resources there. Don't forget to check that out.
So when you're doing her, you want to find the space on the canvas you want to put her. If she's overlaid on the building, like I have done, you've got some interesting reflection challenges and you've got some interesting contrast challenges that you sort of have to add some shadow and pop some things between these two spaces to get them to work. If you put her in the center, then she already is perfectly framed, and then all you've got to do is kind of glaze. Like, I'll show you really quick. So you'd know what you have. Oh, thank you so much. What you would do. So say you wanted to put her in the center. I'm just assuming anybody would want to know this. I'm just taking my glaze. You would bring this down so lightly, and it would be vanishing into the rain source. And this angle and that angle would sort of match, and you would just imply both of those just very loosely. And as lightly as possible, and that's how you could frame her centrally if you wanted to frame her centrally, and then you just add like a little mist and stuff here. So let's frame her centrally so I can show you that. I'm gonna grab some tape so she can be off to the side centered. She could be over here, but each place that you move her impacts how she's lit.
Yeah, I like her where you placed her there.
Do you like her central?
Well, yeah, I like. Well, you've done a couple different placings. I like her when she's like that little bit off bit.
Well, then we can do that.
No, it's okay. You can do either one.
No. I mean, because that's what's in the thumbnail, so I don't mind.
Yeah, it's okay. It doesn't matter. That's the wonderful thing about being able to move it around.
That's why you move it around. But I've showed you guys how to fix it. So I'm gonna put her down the painting a little bit, Her skirt's crossing over the curb. Her elbows here. And I'm going to make sure she's nicely placed in vertical. We don't want her at an angle either, otherwise that'll ruin it. I'm using Serral paper to transfer her. I am using the yellow, and here's my thoughts on Serral. I really love it. There's a link in the description below. Hey, John. He's not here. Okay. There's a link in the description below. He wasn't even here. And my takeaway, having used it quite a while, is I still just love it as transfer paper. The red bleeds through on white. Not on every color, just white.
Oh, yeah.
So just be aware of that when you're...
I was multi-coffee tasking. Sorry.
Were you? All right, I'm going to trace this in, so it's a good time to multi-coffee task. Anyways.
I was actually just looking over your palette.
Sharpen my pencil.
What are you doing here?
It won't let me.
It's probably because you put a lot of chalk. Oh, no, that's not the chalk one.
It's not the chalk one.
But
all right, there we go.
I was looking
Just
over at your palette and how beautiful those oranges and yellows and reds are over on the edge.
Mm-hmm.
That's just so pretty.
Isn't it lovely?
Right. Anyway, sorry, not being distracted.
Well, these are contrasts. So what's the contrasting color to blue? Why did I add blue to my gray?
Because of the yellow?
Because orange is the contrast to blue. So by adding a tint of this Prussian blue, it's going to make my city lights and her yellow dress and all of that stand out even more.
Yeah.
I am playing unfairly.
Now, see, sometimes, guys, I have to guess at these things because I'm going
to put my glasses on so I can see what the heck I'm doing.
You know, I would not consider myself an artist. I took a lot of art history and art courses because there was a really pretty girl down the hall, and I started to attend her classes. So I learned a lot about art history, which I would not have learned. But it's totally fascinating, and turned out that who would have known that in my switching career, I would need to have art history.
I love that Tally totally knew you were taking those classes to date.
Yeah. I owe all of my art.
So much grief. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
not relevant to you guys learning how to paint. So I'm very carefully tracing over my design, making sure I get my angles. I like her little implied ruffle at the edge of her skirt. She's what the burnt umber is about because I use that to darken the yellow. You could also use purple. Would also work. All right, so we've got the two legs, the heel, and then we know she's got a light reflection that comes out. So you don't need to worry about that too much right now. You just need to know that she's on the canvas so you can paint her in. Let's see how we did. Ah, pretty good. I think I have enough information there to get her in like you do. So I've got her placed, and this gives me a nice amount of room to add a reflection down here. If you get any of your transfer paper over, it should come right up with like paint and water, like it does. And I will finish out this umbrella because I connect the line. This is watercolor pencil. So this will all be done in teeny tiny little number 2 brushes and smaller. Small detail brushes, like my number 2 little shaders, 1 rounds, and probably, I'm going to do my number 2 ruby satins. That's how I'm going to get her in. This is going to be my arsenal, I think. See how that goes. So I'm going to just add a little burnt umber to everything. And I'm going to put out some fresh cad because I know I'm going to be really needing it. And my paint skins over during the painting process. Fresh black as well. And I've got fluid white and fluid black in reserve. And the reason I have those in reserve is on the finishing touches with her. By using them, I can get some very refined lines. And I'll show you how I do that and how I'm able to get some really worked out pieces on her. All right, let's start blocking her in. So I've got my burnt umber here. I'm going to put my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. Right, A little burnt umber. I get a little of my yellow into it. And I'm going to start putting in some shadows. I know I've got a little shadow under my umbrella. Right? Because the umbrella, what does it do? It not only stops rain, it stops light. Fantastic for that. I'm going to come on the inside. We've got to change the positioning of this palette so much. Look how much I got to turn to come there. All right, I can't wait for the new studio. So I'm going to come down here and put a shadow where her arms and her body are shadowing each other. And I'm going to move a little shadow kind of into the bend of the arm where the elbow bends. And a little bit out here. And then there's a little bit of a shadow at the waistline where the skirt starts to pop out. There we go. All right. Doing pretty good. I'm making sure I don't damage my umbrella space too much. Now underneath there, we're going to come back. I'm going to make sure that I've got some little fabric folds that we're going to talk about a little bit. I've kind of got those in. I'm just dry brushing a little my color where I can see that. If you have it, you know, so I'm going to get a little more yellow. I don't want this to be bright yet though, because I'm going to be brightening it as I paint it. So I have lightened it one shade, but it's still, you know, not the bright yellow that is her dress. I'm going to come along the shoulder. And you can see where this little brush is my friend. Little brushes are your friend. Tip it in. But being able to see this helps me. Little brushes help me. My paint being pretty decent helps me. So I'm now brush stroking up into the dress. I love painting her. Just so y'all know. I love, love, love painting her. I love her yellow dress. I love kind of everything going on in this painting. Get right into my yellow here. And it gets to be really fun when we start putting in the bright highlights and reflecting everything on the dress and on her. If I ever get a brighter color, I start to put it where I know I need it. Because it just adds to the layering, right? So we've got the yellow dress blocked in. Now we've got some stuff with the feet. Right? And I'm going to get into my little brush for the stuff with the feet. And I'm going to pull a little of my black out. Maybe put even a little blue into it. And if you need, it's a good time to, if you have zinc, put it out. Because it'll help you with the black legs and the black umbrella. If you don't have it, just work it out with titanium white. I'm taking a little of my blue and a little of my black. And I'm going to very carefully start to paint in this leg. My brush got thick, so I just wiped off and I'm reloading. If you get there and you're like, your stroke is significantly bigger than you expected, it's so much work to trim a line. Just take the chance and just offload and reload. Right, that's what you want to do. You want to offload and reload. So I'm just painting this in. So coming from her dress, that would be the thickest part of her leg, and it's tapering down into her ankle, which is quite slender. And then we have a heel. And the only way we see the heel at all is the reflection. So I like to make sure that I've got the stroke in. Right? And I'm just, I'm just edging. And I just need to get the shape in. But once I have those things, now I've got the ball of the foot. She's going to be about a total of 14 centimeters and a little under 5.5 inches. No problem, anytime. So, like I said, my blue and my zinc are going to be my friend. I've loaded up with a little blue and some zinc. And I'm going to take this time to make sure that this leg has a little bit, a smidge of some highlighting to it. So back here at the calf, I'm going to highlight this a touch. And this is going to do a couple of things. This is going to allow this leg to stand out from the leg in front of it, which you're going to need some glazing medium. And it's going to give some shape. So a lot of times in the rain paintings, you would get really abstract, which I love.
Oops, sorry. My mic was off when I asked that question.
Oh, okay.
I was sorry about that.
Oh.
They didn't hear me ask. They're like, all of a sudden, you're like, oh, yeah, I can do that.
Now, right here to the outer edge, I'm going to take a little of my zinc, and I'm going to put a slightly stronger reflection right here. Can you see that?
Yeah.
That slightly stronger reflection is going to talk about the shape of her leg as much as anything else. I'm pulling a shadow down here. Now I'm also, right? Thank goodness my water's clean. All right, erase. My brush is wet. And what I'm doing is I'm just rubbing here and wiping off. See that?
Yeah.
If my paint is dry, I can do this type of erase. I'm still painting her dress, so it's even okay if it has a black smudge on it. Oh, that was nerve-wracking. Didn't love that. Wasn't my favorite. Okay. So I'm going to put a little more zinc onto my brush. And I'm going to come back here. And I'm going to hold my canvas firmly. And I'm going to just highlight the outside of what is the heel of her shoe. See me making this small circle? Then I'm going to come and pull a straight line down. Look at that.
Yeah.
Straight line down. And then all of a sudden there's a shoe there. I'm going to come to the outside edge. Also. You can even kind of do the outside edge here a little bit. Once you have that, go ahead and get some pure titanium white. And if you need to, get your fluid. Add a high highlight there. One down the heel. One to the outside. Can you see that shoe now?
Yeah.
Front leg. 2 ways to do it. One, you can tuck it in where you don't see it. And the other one is you can kick it out forward where she's in mid-step. I'm going to, this leg will be darker. Let me take a couple of coats. So see, this could be tucked out or it can be kicked ahead. You're going to kick it ahead. it needs to come out like this. And it is going to be just through the act of incredibly subtle highlights, shadows, and reflections that we create these two spaces of legs.
Now, Karen was asking, if you wanted to put, why didn't you put the bokeh in the reflection?
Because it's a camera effect. It doesn't exist in the real world. It only exists in the recording.
So yeah, so bokeh is typically an effect due to focus distortion from a point source of light.
Yeah.
And when it reflects, you tend to lose that point source, so you don't really get a bokeh effect from a reflection typically.
Nope.
It is possible for it to happen, but oftentimes you're going to see in a reflection you get a smear effect, whereas an actual object gives you more of a bokeh effect, and that's part of what makes this, in some ways, seem more real to our mind. And then for other people, it may be more confusing. So because you're now taking that picture apart with your brain, going, how come it doesn't do that on the bottom if it's reflecting? But yeah, it's weird optical things.
Now I'm just lighting the edge of her shoe, up her leg a little bit. And I will do a bright highlight. So whichever way you choose to put that in, that is 100% fine. I think it's important to have the front leg be a lot darker. I'm using blue actually to make it even darker. All right, now a little bit of the zinc. So some work, but not impossible. I'm going to come just on the inside leg. Kick back here with a fine light. Now you can see both of them. A lot more. Now, one of the other things, and we're going to put this dark reflection underneath her. And it's a good time to stick it in while you've got everything kind of worked out. I've got my blue and my black. I may need to put it to the side. Underneath her foot, I'm going to tap this in quite level. And a little bit here too. See, I'm tapping that in. And I'm going to pull this back. And a little bit back here. Now there's a little trick I'm going to do on her reflection, where I'm going to take a little bit of my zinc white at first. And I'm going to imply that a little light has come through as she's walking. Can we see the light coming through?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get a darker black. Ooh, for my good little pop of black. Make sure that this is also reflected. See how there's like a black and blue reflection? And if we have our bristle brush, our smaller one, where's our smaller one? Where'd it go? I lost the brush. Okay, that's fine. There it is. You can take a little of your brown and a lot of your kind of cad yellow. And then just come right here and make a loose, see how I'm going back and forth? It's very loose. Bit there, and I'm going to get a little white. make sure that some of this is light. And that's going to put her in the street. She should reflect in the street in some way. Yep.
Yep.
I'm going to put a little cat highlight there just to make sure there's a bright pop somewhere. Okay, there we go.
Now,
So that's going to help me now when I do her dress and her umbrella, because we've done the hardest thing, which is her legs.
now, when you're painting this kind of painting, you're really this is an abstract painting. Is that
This
right?
painting is abstracted.
Abstracted.
So there's non-objective abstract art, of which nothing in the painting should objectively resemble anything else. In that non-objective category, there's a whole lot of subcategories.
So yeah.
But of course, once the abstract artists hit, the objective artists were like, what can I abstract? And this kind of goes back to the Impressionists who did this a little bit too. What can I loosely express? What can I abstract? What can I talk about in this sort of symbolic way and still have a piece be what it is?
And
You're abstracted.
and I make jokes earlier because I find myself wanting to lean more into the non-objective reality camp, where it's like, yes, we're going to try to convey abstract ideas using realistic objects that don't resemble what they are supposed to.
Yes.
And
so my favorite thing is like abstract and landscapes, like to come in and just very, like with the winter landscape. I love doing that.
Yeah, I think this is all.
I'm like, how much of that can we take away and still have landscape? It's really fun for me.
So like, you know,
design.
So a lot of the lights and things in the background, you're emotionally talking about how they look. And so sometimes some people may perceive those as in different ways.
Yes, and that's okay. If you do a piece and you've abstracted anything, you've left room for people to come in and view it and interject their own experience into it. Allow them to do that.
Yeah.
You know, and just don't allow them to be rude.
Yeah, you know, everyone can walk away from a painting with a different feeling from it, but that's our goal, right? As
Totally.
artists, aren't we trying to have a conversation of emotion with people?
We hopefully are. It's our objective.
Yeah.
I hope I am, but we'll see how it works out.
I love that we have so many people here celebrating painting with us. You know, we got over 430 people here hanging out, just doing this with us, and that's a blessing. So thank you guys for being with us. Thank you for coming and celebrating this time with us. It's amazing.
I am putting out a little fluid paint, a cheap hack for this. If you can't get, so all the heavy body paints have a soft bodied option, sometimes called a fluid option, not the same as an ink. It's a in-between viscosity between all this. But craft paint is also in that, so you can just use craft paint if you need to. I'm going to load up with some black. And I'm going to come here, and I'm actually going to leave my yellow if I can, so that I can get my ribs in. At each segment down here, these segments are all in darker value. I have to highlight my ribs or my umbrella structure just to get the umbrella to pop out. So in the past, and we've got some coming up that are super one hoot, but in the past, when I've done umbrella girls, the umbrella is very simplified. This is going to be a little more, if I need to get a really fine thing, sometimes I go tap. Can you see me tapping? Tapping. Not T-tapping, but tapping. Down here. So I'm going to have to talk about all these little structures, the way the light is hitting the top of her umbrella, a couple micro shadows, and some highlights to pop this little guy out. Once you understand how to paint this, though, I don't think you'll ever go back to the other way. So see how I'm just pulling in these segments?
Yep.
Build it up a block at a time. I learned something from every genre of art, every expression of art. Like, one of the things that I have come to understand from the realists is the idea of micromanaging the painting. They take on a small chunk of information, not all of them, but a lot of them. This is how they break it down. And by taking in these small digestible chunks, they don't get overwhelmed by the entire piece. But then you look at the, you know, impressionists and the daily painters and how they, you know, everything is, how much can you say with one brush stroke? And both of these things have value. The brave painters, we just take it all and go, this is all good. Let's do all this. So I'm mixing a little blue into my black, and I'm going to come get some zinc. And I'm going to start painting the top of my umbrella. Again, making sure that I am keeping track of my segments, like an orange. Painting that in. And you can see how right here, that's really helping me. When I did the original, what I did is I just painted little segments that were open because I didn't have my nice little yellow lines. So I'm just coming here. Tap, 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 tap. Right here. On the front segments, I lighten my paint a bit. So I'm going to get a lot more of my zinc white. You can do your titanium white. I'm going to paint this front right here. Got a little segment. Other little segment. Just painting that in. Already, you can see that my umbrella has some form, right? We figured out that it's already. So, dark, 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 mid-tone, lightest tone. Now it's playing with all of that. It makes that umbrella feel like it is real, and it's actually, for me, like the star of this whole event.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I just love it. I just love it. So I'm going to start working this out. I'm going to take a little of my black out. Maybe get a little highlight of my zinc. I'm going to come right here. I'm going to just put a little highlight right there. Another smidge of one here. These are going to be muted out a lot. Smidge of one here. And then almost in a backwards L right here. I'll wipe off. I'm going to get into my black. And I'm going to come back and just make sure that I'm blending. And if it goes away, I got to put it back. This little highlight. If I lose it, I can grab it and put it back. There we go. See how that's just barely? What I'm looking for. Just barely. It's there, but just barely. Get a little of my blue along here. And if I need to switch down to a smaller tool, I will. I'm just deepening some of these values. Now, I put out my black fluid, and this is an interesting little beast. I'm going to load up. And I'm going to come here on the inside of the rib. I'm going to tap some of that out. I'm going to come here and tap some of this out. Just on the inside, it's my black fluid paint. Here I might come and hit both sides of this on the inside. And then I'm going to come underneath here, under this. What I'm doing is I'm just making sure that this is all sleek and smooth. And where I have that, I'm going to wipe off, grab a little bit of white because I don't want it to be white white. I'm going to come right here. A little bit out. If it gets too thick on you, don't worry. You wipe off, you come right back. Look at that. Now we have this nice little umbrella. Looking pretty good. I'm going to get some zinc. I'm going to come highlight just a little bit on these ribs. I also like to take a little of this fine black. I'm going to come up the top here and kind of work this in. You see that?
Yeah.
I'm taking my fine black. So can you accomplish this with different tools? You can. If that's too thick, you wipe off your brush and thin out that line. And this is what this is about, is just getting control. Now I'm going to do a dark line at the front to help this be in contrast to the background. We can see that. Once I have that in, I'm going to get some of my zinc. I can even smidge it with just a little of the yellow, and my black is on my brush, and I'm going to come to the front. I'm going to highlight this. I may need to switch even to a smaller brush in a minute. And then a little bit on just this side. Midge across here and up. Maybe a little bit across the top here. A little bit here. And we're just starting to work that out. I'm going to get a little of my white. Center of the umbrella, I like to just make a little bit white. And it is okay to take a smidge, a hair, a little bit of your white, your fluid white, whatever white you want. And come along the back here. I like to just tap a little bit of that. Sort of show the reflections that come along the front.
Yeah.
We're just talking about like a little bit wet. It's a little bit reflective.
I like how the panels have different colors and the different tones.
Yeah.
Is that right? Tones?
Oh.
Or shades?
Shades.
Shades. Okay. Bam.
Yeah.
See?
And if I have a little boo-boo, I can come along with my white paint and do anything I need to about it. Too much. And if I ever have too much, I just go back. See? All right, how are we doing? Feel like we're doing pretty good here.
Yeah.
We have a nice little umbrella. Let's see how she looks big. Oh, see? She's got lots and lots of personality. Let's yellow her dress.
Yes.
Super fun stuff. Let me sip my coffee because we're almost done, and
I know.
it's about to come together in like 30 seconds.
It's like this is the
Are you guys learning a lot? I hope you're learning a lot.
They're loving this. There's so many people who are painting along with us. There's lots of little brushes. I've seen lots of new people in here. I saw Susie Q and Desi, and there were a couple folks in here that were saying hello new. Of course, there was Sanja, and Sean's joined us today.
Hi.
You know, I think that's Rory. I think, but I know that I saw.
You guys have too many names out there on the inner tubes.
We have some friends that play with us in multiple places. You know, so like if you're in the SCA, you might have a couple of names you go by. If you're a gamer and you're in WoW, you may have a couple names you go by.
You do a lot of painting with the Sherpa and you're on all the social media. You might have different names you go by. I love when people are like, I'm this on Instagram and this on Facebook and this on Twitter, but on YouTube I'm this.
Yep.
And then they ask the question. I'm like, okay, I got it. Because obviously we get to know you guys, because if you're painting with us and you're sharing artwork with us and we're seeing you on social media, we're gonna get to know you.
Yeah.
It's just one of those weird hoinky-dinks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm loving everything so far. Putting on my can see it glasses.
You can see it.
I can see. I'm going to tint my yellow initially with just a smidge of my brown. I might even grab a little white, and I'm going to start coming here and brightening this dress. So right here, across her back, I'm going to pull this soft stroke. Can you see how we're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Just soft, soft, soft across the back. And it's okay to have, for this one, a little bit coming up. She's got this little waistline. I'm going to take some of this, whatever it was. I don't want to make something way lighter. And I'm going to come to the outside edge of the elbow. I'm going to come this far side as well. I'm going to, believe it or not, pop a little highlight from the building under the umbrella. And we'll pull a bit of a highlight around there. So smidge of brown, smidge, smidge, smidge. A lot more yellow. A lot more yellow. And some white. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to pull up very softly some folds of a dress, right? Are we folding up our dress? Yes, we are. Just dry brush right over the shadow. We want to soften that. Because right now her dress is kind of like a mustard yellow. But as we pull up the color, it's going to continue to brighten and become more cheerful. I'm just grabbing a little more yellow there. Every layer. And it builds up. See how these little, doesn't imply that there's little bits of something happening there. Now, while we're here, I'm going to load up my white. It's got some yellow on it. I'm loading it up. And I'm just underneath the dress going to tip a little bit of lace. I don't know if anybody caught that I had put that in there.
Yeah.
But I loved the lace petticoat idea. And let it go. It's there. Just a little bit. It's implied lace. I'm going to get my yellow. This is going to be a brighter yellow. Right here. Has a little bit of white in it, but it's like a lot of the pad. Right in the middle of the arm, and pull some of this across her back. Outside edge. Pulling that up. Pushing that down. Building up this incredible dress. Now I feel like that's a little dark there, so I'm going to get a little of my brown back on my brush. Some more yellow. And just dry brush this. So I want it to be in shadow, but I don't want it to be brown. If that makes sense. Get a little more of my...
Boy, our community is excited today. A lot of them have people in the studio with them that they brought in to paint with them or watch with them.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. Yeah, Julie's got her friend, she was just saying here in chat. Let me scroll back up. She's got her friend in here in chat with her.
I'm over here.
Oh, there you are.
The new switching system. Everything's been broken, so like until we do the new thing, John's got some stuff happening in the back.
But she's got Dolores in the studio with her, teaching her how to paint. I think Tina was painting. We've got a bunch of little brushes that we're painting. A lot of our community is really enjoying this. I saw Leia out there today, and Nikki, and Olivia. There's just a whole... You know me, I get my romper room thing going on here. I just love to say hello to everybody. But, they're all having a great time today, Cinnamon. This has been a really great painting.
This has been fun.
Yeah.
So can we see how the dress is starting to brighten up, and we see the structure of the dress, and she's reflected, and she's just beautiful in this space.
And just so much better. I mean, even that painting looks so much better than the previous one. And it's so
Oh,
hard.
really?
Yeah. I mean, like, well, it's so difficult to be able to capture in a photo these paintings because it just doesn't do them justice. It doesn't. I mean, like
The new cameras. I'm getting a little bit of yellow, and I'm really lightening it with white, almost to a ducky. Can you see my ducky? You keep talking, John. I just want to let them know I'm doing.
The magic of these paintings is in the pigment. You just can't get that out of a photo or a print.
I'm gonna add a highlight. Do you see that there at the elbow?
Mm-hmm.
Just an implied one, just a smidge. Across here, and then around the back is this ducky. More ducky. She's just ducky, man. And then out, down into a fold. Wonder if, there we go, down into a fold. So you can see I pull some highlights even at the creases just to give them some dimensionality. Let's put a little highlight right here. Maybe just a smidge where it hits right there. And you may want to wipe off and grab just some pure CAD, not a lot, just some pure CAD, and tap some around the dress to give a pop of saturated, intense color. So that her yellow dress is, I don't know, like the yellow dress, if that makes sense. There we go. Is she popping yet? She's popping. Camera can't even see her. All right. Camera's like.
Did you see it there? You can see. I got it closed up on. You can really see she popped.
Now I'm going to get into my fluid black. I'm privileged enough to have it out. It's going to help me do a fine line here. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to tap a little belt. I'm going to wipe off my brush. Put a little black and my yellow together. And just tap right here. A little bit of a shadow if I need to. If you don't need it, don't do it. I'm going to put just a bit of one in and maybe some little pleats. If the pleats get away from you, if your dog has a donut. No, just soften them out. All right, it's good. There's really nothing else I can say about it except to sign it.
Yeah.
Because we've done it. We did it.
You did it.
We did it.
It's a painting.
It is a serious painting. I cannot tell you how often I've been asked to do something in this style. No, it's not palette knives, but I mean, just this is the deal here, right? This is the one that you see in the gallery. So if this is one that you have wanted in your life,
this is great.
Now you know how to make it happen. I'm gonna get a little. What am I gonna sign with? Blue? Prussian. Prussian. Let's get some Prussian on there. So I've got my fluid paint and I'm tipping it with a little bit of Prussian because I want to put my signature on here, but I don't want it to. I worked really hard to get here, so I don't want to damage the painting. So I'm gonna use like colors that are in the painting that make the signature seem a little reflective of the world around it. It's okay to think about your signature a little bit. All right. Whew, all the way to the 6th. We're going every day. The final 3 paintings should be posting soon. You're going to love them. And the last one for some of you is going to be hopefully your favorite piece you've ever done on the channel. I am certainly really proud of it. And I can't wait to share it with you. I hope you loved today. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. I want to see you with the easel really soon. Bye-bye.